Oh, it sounded like an iPhone.
I think I have an iPhone in my bag. Maybe that's like a key in my car or something. Maybe I have a car. Normally I did that before I did it myself. But so essentially the comments I'm going to make are, what's it like to take a company from a startup to an IPO? And I have very, very specific thoughts about that. But I'll share them with you, and they may surprise you a little bit. Let me just start with a little bit about LogMeIn. There we go. So if you don't know LogMeIn, we really are the company that is connecting up the world. And our belief, our mission is that we can evolve human capability by transforming how people interact with each other and the world around them. And that mission manifests itself in a whole portfolio of products that are all about simplifying the connections in the world. So we started with a product called LogMeIn Free. As John Corey mentioned, it's a freemium business model. But it's really enabling workforce mobility, giving people the freedom to work wherever they would like, to access home computers from work and vice versa. And we steadily moved on to enabling remote support. And more recently, we've introduced products like Join Me, one of the world's most popular online meeting programs. And it's sort of been an evolution of connecting people to devices and moving on to connecting people to other people. Most recently, we introduced a product called Cubby, which is a cloud-based storage sharing and sync, file sharing and sync product. These products together are actually used by more than 50 million people in a typical year. Last year, I think it was 57 million people used our products. And so they're an important part of the fabric of digital living. And we deliver about, give or take about 1 billion remote sessions in a year. When we went public in 2009, we did a little research study. And at that time, I learned there's 243 countries and territories in the world. I had no idea at the time. But it turns out we have users in all 243 countries and territories. It includes Pitcairn Islands, North Korea, and 241 other places apparently. But it really is a large, large scale enterprise. How do you go from being a startup to going public? And I have a simple couple of questions, actually following on that Jeopardy theme that started this morning. I have a little quiz. So I said LogMeIn was started in 2003. I'd like you to think about, maybe write down, put in your iPhone, but just how many companies that were founded in 2003 do you think went public? Does everyone have that number in their mind? Okay, I'm going to give you a hint. About 600,000 companies are started each year. I'm going to thank Charco, who is here in the audience, who helped me dig up these numbers, one of my colleagues. Give you one more hint. 2,106 companies receive VC funding on average over the last 12 years. So you got your numbers all set? All right, how many people think 100? 100 or more? Raise your hand. 50 or more? Raise your hand. How about 20 or more? Any negative people who said 0? Anyone? That's a trick question because there's a one. Turns out it's 8. 8. And that was a really good year. 2003 was a big vintage. We've averaged about 5 in the post.com era. So for me, when people ask, well, how do you take a company from a startup going public? My answer, for good or bad, is don't worry about that. That's not the question at all. The real question is, how do you make a great company? If you make a great company, maybe you'll go public, maybe you won't. But I think building a company, I'm just going to go public, is actually trying to pursue the wrong goal. The right goal is, how do you make a great company? And the good news is there's a simple picture that answers that completely. This is it. So I don't know how many are fans of the Hudsucker Proxy, the Coen Brothers movie, but the main character, he has this great idea he's showing to this huge corporation. It's a simple picture with a round circle on it. And he shows everyone, he says, for the kids. the first ring is passion. For me, passion is the extreme form of curiosity. And so curiosity is the root of everything that's good in the human experience. From fine arts to science to business. Without curiosity, you just don't really make any progress. And if curiosity is good, then passion is great. And what passion is, it's that interest the leadership of a company has that allows them to go from customer feedback and turn that into insight, to sort of understand where they want to go. It's passion and only passion that really can help you create an awesome product that makes your customers orgasmically happy. You're not going to go real far without awesome products in today's world anymore. And also, just kind of picking up on something that Ash said, passion is what gives you the tenacity to stick with it when something goes wrong. And I don't think you'll talk to a single, quote, successful entrepreneur who won't tell you that there are lots of problems. And I actually, because I've always done startups, I'm sort of a startup guy, I love startups. And I actually think a company that fails is because 9 out of 10 things they tried just didn't work. However, a company that succeeds, that does really well, maybe that ultimately goes public, well, I think 8 out of 10 things they tried don't work. So it's not like you just go out and everything, count the money, unfortunately. So tenacity gives you that ability to stick with things as you're learning and you're going through the hard knocks. Now, the next ring, and this is normally where a venture capitalist would start. What's the opportunity? What's the size? The next ring, if you have passion, are you going after a market opportunity that has the economic potential energy to matter? Is it a big enough issue that if you solve it, it affects a lot of people or affects an important part of the economy? Going hand in hand with that is you need to create a right to win in that market. How are you going to access that market? How are you going to win against competitors? And create that right to win. And so if you have passion for an area and an area is important, I think you got the outer two rings and you can move on. Now the next ring is audacity. Because you really have to believe you can achieve it. You can make that dent in the universe and can win against competitors. And you're going to have two types of competitors, those that are brand new like yourself, but you know who your other competitors are going to be because there's such massive consolidation in our industry. So if you have a good idea out there from anywhere from the front to the back room, you know if it's successful, you're going to compete against one or more of Microsoft, Symantec, Citrix, Google, Facebook, Salesforce. There's a pretty small group, and they're going to be your competitors. And you have to have the audacity to be that, again with a nod to Ash, that rule breaker. I'm not going to play their game. I'm going to force them to play a game where I have an unfair advantage. And it takes audacity to say, I'm going to win against those types of competitors. And I've never met a successful entrepreneur who didn't have the audacity to say that we're going to do that and win. And then finally, and the middle ring is team. And team is my word for maybe culture. Team is the thing that actually takes an idea and turns it into a company. And particularly in what we do for a living, so much of us have no tangible assets. It's all intellectual property and the relationships between our employees. Turns out you don't spend as much time as you'd like on the face of this earth. Give or take a bit, it's about 30,000 days. A good career is going to be about 10,000 of those. And the team is going to determine whether those 10,000 days are fun, engaging, satisfying, and those days are perishable, irreplaceable goods. 1,000 work with that are good people, that are intellectually challenging, that are fun people, that I'm proud to show my customers to, and things like that. And so if you're going to be successful, you're going to need a good team. So, one of the smartest people I know is a person named Elon Zmerich. Anyone heard of him? Anyone? There's someone raised their hand, which is really interesting. You may, because he actually does work with students from New England. It's my father-in-law. He teaches art history in London. Now, the fine arts department is rarely a go-to source of business information and advice. But this man, he's a very brilliant man, and he was once, we were talking about human relationships. And what he said, the people you really like, the people you respond to, they're not perfect. In fact, if they were perfect, you probably wouldn't like them and be annoying. But the people you really like have a mix of qualities and imperfections, and somehow those imperfections amplify their qualities. And if you actually took away the imperfections, they'd be less. And I actually think there's something about that for even business teams. Because if you just have people that are awesome at execution, you probably might squeeze out risk takers, dreamers, people that are willing to, the flights of fancy that are often innovation. And you need teams that, ultimately are complementary. Not that they're perfect as individuals, but together they're better. And I think that's a really important part of building your team culture. The other thing is, if you're going to have a very successful company, one with the potential energy to go public, whether you want to or not, there's going to be a phase where that startup's going to be doubling in size. Maybe every year, maybe every 18 months, maybe even faster. And that means that the team you bring in today is going to face a business that is 4 times as big in 2 to 3 years or less. And so when that often means 4 times as many salespeople, 4 times as many customers, 4 times as many customer care calls. And 2 years goes by awfully fast in the whole world, including the startup world. And so when you hire someone on your team, you got to make sure they can't just solve today's problem, but they can solve the problem you're going to face when you're almost an unrecognizable company in 2 or 3 years. So if you get all those things together, I think you'll be successful. And if you're successful, you can go public if you want. But again, the main outer ring, the enabling ring, is passion. So I'd like to give you a little bit of insights of how we think about this working, specifically at LogMeIn. So, and our vision is really to help people reach their full productive potential by transforming the way people interact with computers, with each other, with data. And so, if we start with the market we're in, we really have 3 acts. I've mentioned the products act. Well, act 1 for us was really the internet wave, which was about PCs and connectivity. We're selling into, as I say, a hardware market that could be characterized by a little over 1 billion devices on the internet, roughly a $90 billion marketplace. And we're really enabling workforce mobility. And the way we did that was a service delivery platform we created called Gravity. If you follow LogMeIn, we talk about it a lot. It's something that gives us scalability, security, also gives us quarter in, quarter out, by far the highest gross margins of any SaaS company, running roughly 90%, and we're one of the few SaaS companies with a freemium model, so lots of people on it. That's all enabled by Gravity. And it basically, this first act got us from sort of 0 to about $75 million of revenue in about 48 months, and it allowed us to go public. But as everyone said, change is inevitable, and then there was another way, and it was the mobile way. Now, the good news, a lot more devices, a much bigger market. We went from 1 billion to 6 billion devices on the internet. The hardware side of it went from sort of a 90 billion to $250 billion marketplace. But it wasn't just bigger, it was different. And it's transformed our business completely. It actually changed us from how do we get things to connect to people, and how do we get people to connect to people. Interesting enough, it changed. We have a freemium, John Poirier introduced me kindly, mentioned we have a freemium business model. We try and engage a lot of people with useful free functionality. Actually, after going public, had organic acceleration of our growth rate. functionality that we wanted to implement, and ease of use and reliability and intuitiveness, but actually had an emotional content that we wanted people to think of joining in a way that made them happy, emotionally happy. And interesting enough, if you Google something like the phrase, I love Apple, you get almost 4 million hits. If you Google, I love something like Nike or Starbucks, you're going to get in the sort of 1.5 to 2 million. Just to give you the full end of the spectrum, if you Google, I love Dow Chemical, 80%. Better chance of going public in 2003 than finding somebody who loves I love Dow Chemical, including the board of directors. More than 8 people on the board of directors than that. But if you Google I love Joiner, you get about 2.5 million hits, which is really an amazing number when you look at an enabling technology. And now we're going into our third act. And it's got this code name, this is Xi up there. And this is the way in which we feel like brings our mission to its ultimate potential. And that's what you're starting to hear now, where the world is starting to be marked by a network of things, the likes of which we've never seen before, where we literally go from single-digit billions of connected devices to potentially tens of billions very quickly, and ultimately trillions. A giant market, the likes of which we've never seen before. Certainly a much bigger technology market than we've ever seen ever in our lifetime. In the 100 years of IBM, nothing like that has ever happened. Which then, of course, brings me to Audacity. The biggest market ever, our intention, is to dominate. And I think we have unique rights to win in that marketplace. So let's kind of talk about what's going on a little bit. Is essentially people are pretty frequently now quoting the idea there will be about 50 billion internet-enabled devices that are connected via sort of GSM technology. The reason you get to trillion is that it just seems farcical. You're like, no way, how could we ever possibly in our lifetime do that? Well, it turns out things are becoming internet-enabled now and part of the Internet of Things, which you would never, ever, ever, ever dream of. And that $14 trillion market, that's about 14% of the projected worldwide product. If you took all the GDPs of all the countries and added them up in 2020, I mean, it's a giant number. And it seems like blue sky stuff until you realize every single industry is trying to take advantage of every single bit of human experience. And so essentially what we're finding with our Z project, which we've announced, we will announce this quarter, so stay tuned for the actual announcement. But essentially we think our connectivity platform, Gravity, will play a central role in the types of solutions that genuinely are transforming our lives. So some things you see, like I don't know if any of you have down there. If you have young children, infants, you spend a lot of time as a parent with your head right next to the baby monitor. You're looking at it, listening, making sure everything's okay. Well, it'd be really nice if there were a little bit of technology that can confirm the baby's okay. Those sort of things are happening right now. You kind of take for granted package tracking for UPS and FedEx, but anything important in your life can readily be tracked. And things that are inanimate are starting to be internet enabled. So people are looking at things like actually tracking paper cups and bottles, furniture, things like that. So it just takes a QR code and a smartphone to suddenly bring something into it. And so our vision is to play a central role in the biggest market that probably technology will ever see. And so that's part of it, Audacity. So essentially for LogMeIn, we're trying to get these 4 pieces all in place, from passion to market to Audacity. And so with that, I'll say thank you very much for the time this morning.